Now, an hour of clarity for exhausted people of our nation mired in toxic partisanship. Left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
All right, welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Willis, your host today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm wearing Freedom Variant gear, Kevin.
All right, you still got the Freedom Variant stuff on? Nice.
Yeah. I mean, it's available, folks. Just let me know.
Yeah. You'll make it. Yeah, so we're live on our Thursday evening show, which, again, this is a show that's not going out on the radio. It's just for you, the internet viewers, just for you guys, and the podcast people, too, I guess.
Yeah. Kevin, I don't think Joe Biden's handling this whole gas situation as well as he could. I got to be honest.
Joe, come on. No, he's not doing great.
He threatened the oil companies with emergency powers. He's doubled down on blaming Vladimir Putin and ignoring, because he's ignoring monetary policy. We've had these conversations over and over again. And
is it not Putin's fault?
Is it Putin's fault? Can it be Putin's fault? China's still buying Putin's oil, so the supply is still available. The market still has oil. So is it Putin's fault? Is it devaluation of the currency? Is it corporate greed, Kevin? Is that the one? Price gouging corporate greed. Us libertarians love the conversations about price gouging corporate greed.
Yeah. So, and again, we got not just like high gas prices, right? We got the 8.6% inflation overall, which doesn't include energy prices and food prices. That is separate from that. So like the total inflation, the amount your money has deteriorated over the last year is likely a bit higher than that.
Don't look at the man behind the curtain when it comes to inflation, right? Don't look at the core food and energy prices. Let's just say that's irrelevant. It's just amazing.
Let's ignore that part. But no, and so all right, we'll talk about the gas thing, right? Like, so like, is it Putin's fault? Like, no, yes and no. Like, is there disruptions to the supply chain because of that? Yeah, that is, but it's not just Putin's fault that gas prices are rising, specifically in the United States. They are rising elsewhere too, all around the world, but there are other policies that go into play here, like corporate greed. I'm just kidding. That's a stupid answer. I like that one. No, that one drives me nuts, right? Because again, like, what's the actual logic behind corporate greed is driving higher energy prices and inflation overall, right? Like before, Tim, the corporations were generously letting us have stuff that they produced and barely making a profit, and suddenly they've gotten greedy. That's all at once. They're like, yeah, you know what? We can get away with this now.
Now we can get away with it. We are going to go corporate greed. And when we talk about corporate greed, we should always remember, like, let's compare who makes the most money off of the sale of a gallon of gas, right? Like there's chains up and down this line of producer, supplier, end user, provider. Okay. And then the government gets this consistent slice of every gallon of gas sold that's way higher than any one person's profit margin up and down that chain. And the 20 cents that they knocked off in New York State doesn't cover the entire amount of gas. And guys, guess what? Once that gas tax comes back down the road, we are going to be raising our tax on gasoline in New York State. This is all kind of like,
because it's going to come back eventually. Man. Like they're not cutting the highway budget or anything or pulling from anywhere else. Like it's going to come back eventually. And who knows, maybe gas prices will have gone down by then or not. We're just suddenly going to get a 20-cent bump in gas. Because there's gas taxes not only on gas tax holidays, not only at state level too, but it's the county level. The county in Monroe County, we have a gas tax of like 8 cents a gallon or something. And they did a tax holiday. So, it ends up being a little bit of money in the end, but like it's going to come back. Like they plan for having that money. They're not just gonna I would love it if they just cut the tax and then they cut either the service associated with it or they pulled that money from somewhere else.
How are they going to pay for $2 million office buildings, Kevin? Like, they're not going to be able to do that if they cut.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that because I can't believe I forgot about it last week.
A little segue of foreshadowing later on in the show. You know, we're going to be talking about some of this stuff. And then
but we have to get to like, okay, so is it you know, there's the government taxes on gas, right? Like, why is it expensive, right? There's these rates that go into that. There's some international supply chain disruptions, but again, there are different ways you can compensate for that.
Sure.
It's probably not corporate greed. Again, you're right. There are, like, every step of the way, like, companies add profit from the resource extraction to the refinement to the delivery to the distribution of gas at the pump. Like, everyone makes it a tiny bit, right? But that's always been the case. Like, that's not a new thing.
No, and to just say all of a sudden now they're greedy, and to just say that's the reason for high gas taxes or high gas prices. It ignores so much of the bigger picture. There's the war. One of the things that is Putin's fault is war and worldwide turmoil and the threat of violence. The disruption of a supply chain is a real threat. So an anticipated supply problem of the unrefined product is going to cause a supplier to charge more money. Now, gas companies are a pretty big operation, and they're pretty much already deep in bed with the government anyway. So when we're talking about this stuff, they're so intermixed. Like, people want to say Biden doesn't benefit from high gas prices. I'm going to tell you what, bullcrap, baloney. Those campaign coffers don't fill themselves, and that's a reality, okay? The big oil fills campaign coffers of Democrats, Republicans, and not libertarians. I want to be clear about that.
Yeah, no, they haven't given their money to the Libertarian Party yet.
Do we have any policies that would benefit them?
Probably.
Maybe it's a sales job, is what I'm thinking.
There are, and again, like the Kochs do have connection to, like, oil and natural gas, and that one of them did run for president in the Libertarian Party. Or what do you run for? Was it president or vice president? I don't remember.
That was back in the 80s, right?
Yeah, it was back in the 80s.
I think they ran for president of the Libertarian Party, and I thought that they served on. They were big donors of the Libertarian Party, especially at first. Like, they were there for us.
Yeah.
The Libertarian Party is supposed to be a place where real conservatives and real liberals can agree that government force and coercion is the problem. And so
vice president.
Thanks, Tim. So yeah, I mean, that's what it's supposed to be. And I find that I don't want to travel down the Libertarian Party.
Well, all right. So, like, just kind of like, what would that look like, right? It's the ability to be able to extract resources, particularly given the permits that the federal government has already issued. Now there's, like, more restrictions and environmental reviews. The the American Petroleum Institute wrote, like, a letter to Joe Biden recently that talked about some of the policy issues with it, right? So it's resource extraction while also being able to not cause too many negative externalities, right? Like, you still have accountability. Like,
right.
You cause an oil spill, you cause damage, you got to pay for that, right?
You got to clean it up, guys. It's a mess. Clean it up.
Exactly.
The oil spills have been happening for a really long time, though, Kevin. Like, going back before we started drilling for oil comes out of the ground, and it does create problems for environmental stuff. And so if we spill it in an ocean, we've got to clean it up. If we spill it in grasslands, we've got to clean it up. But that's all part of the price that we pay. And I don't know. I've been watching studies, guys, about the Arctic ice melting. If you take a glass and you fill it up with water and ice, and the ice goes over the rim, what do you think happens, Kevin, when it melts? Let me paint you the picture a little better. You've got, like, a 12-ounce glass of really cold water with 14 ice cubes in it. 3 ice cubes are fully over the rim of the glass. It all melts. What happens? Does the water go spilling all over the floor?
I don't think it does actually.
No, it doesn't. I got thinking about that. I mean, a
Yeah.
couple of these deserts might fill up with water, and would that be a bad thing if all of the global ice caps melted?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Things will definitely get weird. That's for
Things
sure.
would get lakefront property. They say they're not making any more of it, but if global warming continues, perhaps we will.
There you go. There's opportunities out there.
That's when you just got to plan ahead, man. Got to have a long game. You got to play the long game.
Yeah. But I know we're getting a bunch of comments on like various things about whether or not counties had dropped stuff. So Dave says Otsego County didn't drop ours.
That's our home county. I don't think we did drop our gas tax because our prices didn't even change for 1 second. As a matter of fact, the day that the taxes were supposed to drop, prices went up like 15 cents.
Well, and Jamie, I assume Allegheny County dropped the gas tax. Some businesses did not. Well, they're doing all these news stories in Rochester, right? Like they're doing like investigative stories where like, oh, look, these prices stayed the same the day the gas tax dropped, like, and they should have dropped it by 20 cents. And you know, they wanted the state to take action because they didn't like do it. And like, well, listen, these gas stations, they can do what they want. Like if they want to make an extra 20 cents and try to do that, like, cool. And then people are going to call them out for it. That's fine. Like, and the news stations can even say like, hey, these guys they kept their price high. What the heck? Or maybe they got a new shipment in that morning and it didn't matter. Right. And they're like, well, I gotta raise it to this. Well, you don't know. And they're calling on like the state to take action and stuff. Like, oh, I don't want that. But like, yeah, a lot of businesses, like, they didn't change it either in anticipation or they had actually bought like the more expensive fuel and needed to raise their price anyway because the prices are going up like 20 cents a week for like 3 months. And that's not an exact figure, but like they're going up a lot.
They've gone up
They've gone up quite a bit.
Yeah, so here's one from our guys. And look, I bash Republicans just like I bash Democrats. I look, and New York is a one-party rule state, but it's hard for me to tell the parties apart sometimes because they act exactly the same. This guy that they're calling out right here, Dave Bliss, is a Republican. Our county can't afford to cut its gas tax. We have a mismanagement of money problem because our county employees are low paid. We have booming, thriving tourist businesses. Oh, I'm sorry. We probably crushed those with the COVID government response to COVID for a couple of years. So we did lose out on Texas. So we got to keep our middle class and poor people paying full dollar and paying their gas taxes. It seems to be the most important thing. So I get a little frustrated when we want to pick a red team or a blue team when this guy right here is just team government. That's all he is. He's team government, and a bunch of them are. So yeah. How do you like that, guys?
That's it.
Go team government.
Go team government. So that's how government, it always feels like it. Robert says Biden shut down pipelines and leases. Blame those idiots, not Putin. I mean, as I've gone over this, like the Keystone XL pipeline, like wouldn't matter with that. But the leases thing, it is kind of a thing, right? With both natural gas and some of the other oil drilling leases. And it's not like it's and I'll share a link to the letter. Again, this is oil industry propaganda, but I'll share a link to a letter, which is interesting. They wrote to Joe Biden because a lot of it's like, okay, some of the things like the leases that they have and they want to turn on, which takes a while to turn on, even if they said, okay, yes, go nuts, like do your thing. Like it takes a while, both because of the actual logistics of getting things going, but also because of like the permitting and review processes. It takes years and years. And what they're trying to say is like, well, hey, if we can keep it down to like a year or two, like we can plan for this and make it work. But again, by the time they're able to actually get up and running, it's hard to like have a market that can instantly respond to supply shocks like what we saw here, because you can't just turn on a well.
Correct.
You got to wait for the government approval, and then you got to actually do the thing. And then you're 4 years out, and then something else has happened. And then all these investments that you've made, maybe now the price of oil and gas have dropped a lot, and those are no longer profitable.
And wells go dry, and then they refill. So basically, you need to be drilling fresh wells all the time. And then you can go back and revisit old wells and get more oil out of them. But we're at the point where a number of our wells are getting dry. They're getting close to dry. I do want to circle back around to the XL pipeline because I did a bunch of research on it this week. There was an anticipated supply benefit of a net gain of about 500,000 gallons of usable refinable petroleum for gasoline that was taken out of the equation because it was going to connect some things in Montana to refineries in Illinois and bring that gas from Canada down. So there is.
Yeah, and you know, I'll walk back a little bit what I said, right? I'll pull Joe Biden, and say, like, you and I talked about this because, like, there's other refined petroleum products that is getting used for, like, the motor oils that would primarily be a source for the Keystone XL, and that takes the pressure off of those markets where they can redirect some of their resources to other petroleum products, including refined gasoline, right? So I'll give you that there. You and Robert both.
Well, I got into an argument. I've been arguing on other people's pages, Kevin, and you know, for a long time I didn't go to anybody else's page, just argued and had conversations on my own. But got some funny people out there, some funny left-wing guys that like to make fun of Trump, but they lean libertarian. And so I was getting in there with them and dicing it up with some of the XL comments that not they were making, but people that were on their page were making and saying, like, look, you're not talking about this in the correct frame. Like, and then I got to an argument with a guy and I was like, about Biden and how he's trying his best to make the gasoline markets correct. Biden benefits from this clown show just like everybody else. Again, like I said earlier, campaign coffers don't fill themselves, guys, and regulations fill campaign coffers. Period.
Yeah, it's a weird, it's kayfabe sometimes. Like it's like it's a wrestling thing, right? It's like they're putting on a show for us.
Yes.
Tim, no. Tim Smith,
it's a human. No. I agree with
Tim Smith says $1 a gallon of gas is a human right. No. We've tried price controls. No.
People would be so happy.
The Carter times, Jimmy Carter times, price controls did not work. You know what happens when you do price controls? You get shortages. That's what's gonna happen.
Jimmy Carter, we were gonna listen, guys. Some of you guys, Robert Forrest, probably Dave, and Jimmy Carter told everybody we were running out of gas, man, and we were going to run out of oil, and it was just the most depressing time. And I was a kid, and I was just terrified that literally going to freeze to death this year. We can't even turn our furnace on. We can't afford heating oil, and it was just his misery index. And then all of a sudden, like, Reagan comes along. He's like, well, we'll just drill for more oil. It's not going to be a big deal. Like, let's get more oil. And we did it. And things got better.
Well, it turns out when there's price pressure and you allow people to, like, explore the technology and suddenly it becomes profitable to do different types of oil exploration that might not have been profitable before. Well, you know, that's why we haven't run it. There's still a whole bunch of oil out there. It's not to say, like, there aren't good reasons to switch over to alternative energy sources in some cases, but when there's price pressure, there's a lot out there. And in the short term, it does kind of help make the world go around and keep people relatively comfortable and prosperous.
Right. And look, so Biden did make promises that he was going to take us off of our gas and oil addiction. And when we see the moves that he's made, we know that he proactively took steps in those directions. Those steps proactively contracted the anticipated supply of gasoline and petroleum products. That, and combined with the devaluation of the currency, a lightening of COVID restrictions, people want to be more active. The price of gas goes up. That's a reality. I don't know. I'm still waiting for my stimulus check for the inflation to help me solve my inflation problem.
Inflation solved by extra stimulus checks. It blows my mind that people still propose that.
What do we think it's going to look like, Kevin? I want to put this question to you. It kind of popped in my head. If he enacts emergency powers against oil companies, what is that going to look like? He's going to go in and make them drill for more oil after he made it harder.
Well, it's the same thing like the baby formula thing, right? Like, Joe Biden's gonna, like, fly in a bunch of baby formula. I'm like, bro, you just gotta let people do their thing. Like, same thing with the oil and gas. Like, you just gotta let them do their thing. You don't need to go and force them to do what they wanted to do anyway.
Yeah.
Unless you're just trying to take credit.
Yeah. I mean, look, this guy writes checks he makes promises that he can't keep. Like, he was he was going to take care of COVID, man, day one. Like he was going to straighten it out. And I last week my wife had COVID, so he failed. Period. That's it. End of story. My kid had COVID the week also last week. Like the guy's a failure. He's a liar. And first of all, my point would be that people should not make promises like that. And because what then happens is that they start pointing their stubby, angry fingers at their neighbors saying, you didn't follow the COVID restrictions correctly. And that's why COVID's going around again. And that is what's destroying our society. I mean, I think that's what's creating this
There's a bunch of
duopoly
stuff, but
mindset.
this anonymous Facebook user says he's trying to make himself and his cronies look like heroes. Yeah, man. Like,
Sure.
This is like my theory of like the primary motivation of like most politicians is like they want to take credit for stuff, so like they can be heroes, and someone writes like a nice line about them in a history book. Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
Robert says we were energy independent under Trump. Weirdly enough, that it started under Obama. Well, we weren't totally energy independent. We were a net exporter of many, many energy products starting under the Obama administration.
And that's
which is bizarre, but that's where it started, and it continued under the Trump administration.
Yeah. If I have a favorite thing about Trump, and as you guys know, I've been critical of him because he was a big spender, gun grabbing kind of authoritarian, but his policies regarding energy independence, I thought were critical to our nation, and they're critical to our national security, as we're seeing right now. First of all, you're not going to fly fighter jets with electric batteries, and if we get into a major conflict,
not yet.
Yeah, but the helicopter I've been checking out does fly with electric batteries. So I'm just saying.
Soon, I do think it'd be cool as heck if they could make batteries with the energy density to fly planes. Right now, that is not possible though. Like you can't do it. Gonna have to have some SMRs to do that. We're get some nuclear reactors. They could do it in a submarine. They could do it in a plane.
Hey, let me do. I don't mean to interrupt our flow, but
go ahead.
My buddy Andrew hasn't been around for a while. I'm glad to see you back, pal. Making some comments. Yeah, CNN and then MSNBC takes the cake. The news media fills midwits' mouths with nonsense, and they shout it at people, and so that is a reality. Like I get it, Andrew. You're absolutely right. Ryan Bedford is in the house. All right, brother. It's been a while since we've seen him too. That's good stuff.
Ryan, thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Well, my whole thing on like the energy independence stuff, though, is like it doesn't bother me if like, because I know folks are making. Oh, I gotta find the comment now. Here it is. I think Biden from Dave on Facebook. Biden wants to ship LNG, liquefied natural gas, to Britain. Take Britain 5 years to build a terminal. Like, is that something like it makes sense to me to like export this stuff in the sense of like if we are not micromanaging decisions of these companies, right? Like they're gonna do what makes sense on the market, right? And we don't want to micromanage or nationalize these companies because again, you start to get into Hugo Chavez territory when you do that a bit too much. But
did you see Kamala Harris the other day?
Oh, what'd she do?
She's all like, look, these projects are huge and business can't handle them without government. And what we're going to do is move forward with more public-private partnerships in energy and public-private partnerships. Bro, it's a takeover scam. And guys, you can coat it in velvet and you can paint it with pretty flowers, but fascism is fascism.
That's it. Well, that's how you get like oligarchs like the Russians have. Like, and I'm like, I sound like I'm making a joke about it, but like that's really what happened, right?
That
like,
is what
you
happened.
have these like sort of private companies, right? And then like they're so intertwined with the state that they're essentially inseparable. And they off of the public dime, off of the public resources, and having captured the industry, like they make just oodles of money as long as they are just fiercely loyal to whoever's in charge, and Putin's in charge.
It's kind of, and guys, look, as much as we like Elon Musk right now, it's kind of what Elon Musk did, but with like actual collaboration. Elon Musk was crafty and smart and credit farmed his way into being the richest man in the world. Okay. Like I don't care. Like he built one good business and then credit farmed his way into the rest of it. Like that's it. You guys know what credit farming is. I've talked about it in the past, but where you collaborate with government to get free buildings, you get money to do things, you get tax credits for certain behaviors. And guys, we're going to talk about a tax credit thing that my take on it might get you a little bit annoyed because I'm going to be bashing a Republican. But so that's where we're at with these things. It's a little bit squishy.
Yeah. This is interesting. Well, the ruble's getting worth a lot more right now. Yeah, it looks like it's complicated, but it looks like it didn't quite hit the value of their currency as much as we were hoping, and it still ended up hurting everyday Russians quite a bit. The sanctions and the banking stuff, but they kind of recovered. So I think that was like
because their oil is valuable in what they supply, and
people still want it. People
is
still
profitable, and it's disgustingly profitable. And blood-soaked monsters make the most money. It's disgusting.
No, it is. I mean, like especially when governments end up controlling like resources like that, it ends up being terrible. And again, to Robert Fort's comment on Facebook, said, look what happens to Venezuela when government took over their economy. Yeah.
Everybody lost weight, guys.
Everybody lost
30,
weight.
40 pounds. It was a bad deal for them.
Yeah. And you got new cool materials to make baskets and purses out of win their money.
People were celebrating them nationalizing, like soldiers going in and stealing cases of beer and nationalizing a beer company. Like people celebrated that, like these awful beer profiteers. It's like the most noble profession in the world is the beer maker, Kevin. And here these guys are watching their businesses get nationalized and soldiers taking their product, and people celebrated it. And
we're gonna keep beer cheap, and now we have beer for the people.
They don't have beer. They don't have beer. They don't have bread. They don't have shit.
Very, very temporary.
Them for gas and oil, though, which maybe will work out for them.
Yeah. We'll see if they end up doing that. They're mostly begging the Saudis. But
no, he's begging Venezuela too. They're on the short list. They're getting invited to the White House. He's a good guy like that. So I want to bash. I want to talk about, again, I get into credit farming. We talk about government incentivizing bad behavior or inappropriate behavior and doing things that sound virtuous, but actually create a problem. And some of you guys, probably all of you guys, or a lot of us, just got a property tax, school tax rebate check from your benevolent overlords in the New York State government, right? Like, I don't know.
We got it early. Yeah, weird. We got it before the primary. So weird that we moved that up.
And Letitia James was up in Plattsburgh dropping off some cash for an urban renewal project. Like, what's the attorney general doing dropping off checks? Like, what is this campaigning on our dime kind of bullshit baloney that's going on? So, guys, this star rebate thing, guys, when it came out
on radio, Tim.
Huh? Oh, we're not
on the radio.
All right. So the star rebate thing that came out 1998, 1999. Guess who was governor? That was our last Republican governor. Came up with this great idea. Let's not actually cut property taxes and figure out a way to cut property taxes across the board. Let's take state revenue and return it to people in the form of a school tax rebate and it started as primarily for elderly people, which, guys, it sounds virtuous, right? Elderly people don't have kids in school. We give them a special bonus because they don't have kids in school. But the goal, and Democrats were saying this back then because Democrats weren't as crazy as then as they are now. They're like, that's incentivizing us having old people staying in the state and young people leaving if we don't offer them some sort of commensurate break. Why don't we just cut property taxes for everybody and figure out how to manage the school budgets better? That's what Democrats used to say, okay? And that's what they said to counter George Pataki's program. And everybody also knew that if this program went into place, it was never going to go away. It was never going to turn into a property tax cut across the board. It was always going to be, hey, I'm going to raise your star rebate checks. It's always was going to be this virtuous thing that exists that they're going to use to buy your vote. And so that's what it is, guys. And it was started by George Pataki. And so, again, we get into credit farming. We get into incentivizing. Now, what's bad behavior? I get it, right? Old people probably shouldn't be paying as much. And Larry Sharpe doing the same kind of concept, right? But he's cutting taxes across the board, guys. So there's a difference. That's not what's happening in our local communities. So that's a reality. We incentivized old people to stay, and we provided no incentive for young people to stay. So now to counter it, Kevin, you were talking on your show.
Yeah,
you had something else going on there.
Well, I was so they're trying to bribe recent college graduates to stay in Monroe County. But it's only it's $2,000 if you are in a narrow set of fields. So it's only if you are in IT, life sciences, optics, photonics, and imaging.
Okay.
And
Not
only
not in waste management or
no,
engineering
not in
or
any of that other stuff. And only if
carpentry.
you actually get a job, and it has to be at a firm with 100 or fewer employees. So, like again, people who get jobs in fields with high earning potential at a company based in Monroe County with 100 or fewer employees. So you have a very, very small share of people,
Slim.
all of which, again,
So what
because it's they're mostly high earnings field, are not going to stay in the county for just $2,000. Like
well,
it
what
doesn't matter. It drives me. It's like setting $100,000 on fire
what
because
are the
like
odds of cashing that check really with all the require? What if they budgeted for that program like 10 grand? They're gonna get
they no
five
they
kids.
budgeted $100,000 for it,
All right,
right?
so they're gonna find 50 kids to give
No, that's
$2,000.
exactly what it is.
Okay,
Okay, so yeah, we get 50 recent grads to say, but again, like
guys,
if they got a job locally, they were probably going to stay a minute anyway.
that
Like
sounds
it's
so
like you have
virtuous
to get
though.
the job first. Like it doesn't matter. Like
Oh,
if they didn't get a job locally, or they got a job at a company that was too big, or they got another option that offers them 10K more to go move to like Nashville or something,
they're
like
gone.
they're gone. They're
They're
gonna
gone.
leave. Like, why would they stay? They're not gonna stay for $2,000. Like
Here's
it
well,
literally doesn't matter.
it's
Drives me
it's
nuts.
an insignificant amount of money.
Yeah.
And
So
then after we beat up on hospital workers and stuff like that, it's just
yeah, like
it's
they're just
amazing.
there's I don't want them to bribe. Like, I don't think it makes sense to bribe folks to stay. But if you're gonna do that, like that's like the least group that needs it. Like they do not need it. They already got a job in a good paying field. They don't need that money. It's the other folks who are kind of marginal, a little bit on the edge, like who need an extra push to stay here. And actually, one of the things I meant to mention on my show, which is sort of kind of legal in Rochester, it's like boarding houses in a lot of cities. It's very hard to live with like a group of people that you aren't related to. And in some places it's totally illegal to do that. Like to have roommates essentially.
Yeah, we
And
had
then
an
that's a little
experience
bit
with that in
different from
Oneonta. Go ahead though. Travel
yeah,
down
that's a little bit different from like a boarding house. It's like more meant for that sort of thing. But
right.
it is a thing like where you can rent a room. I don't know how legal it is, but I've known several friends who like they got one room for like $300 a month, and they had to share a kitchen with like 6 other people that they didn't really know, but they were fine with that. Like they had just graduated, and they're like, I just need a place to crash. I'm going to be spending most of my time out, and
I'm
I
gonna
don't
be
want to
at
blow my money on rent.
I'm gonna sleep, I'm gonna drink, and I'm gonna go to work. Let me have those things and I'm gonna be happy. That's it.
Yeah, like they weren't planning on hanging out at home. That's so they wanted to spend their money elsewhere. And so I've known a few people like that. And that's good. Like again, I have no idea if that's like a legal arrangement or not, but I know people are doing it. But in some cities, it's like it's actually enforced. Like you can't do that type of stuff. But that's a good thing if your city isn't doing that and you're wondering where your college graduates are going. Like just legalize cheap housing. And I shared an
Legalize.
article on Twitter about that, which was mostly about homelessness, right? Like because
Right.
again, those are the folks like where if the minimum rent in your city is $1,000, but you could legalize housing and have rooms available for $300-400 a month. Some of those folks might suddenly be housed again.
Yeah. Look, Airbnb poked a hole right through all these regulations that these small towns and small cities put into place regarding restrictions on housing. Okay, they poked a hole in it. They drove a bus through it. Whatever you want to look at, all of those rules and regulations that they put into place made Airbnb possible. And when I take a look at my hometown of Oneonta, they about 22 years ago they started really wanting to limit the number of people living in a domicile, right? And they really wanted to cut back on it. And so the unintended consequence of that is there is no affordable housing for families. They stepped up code enforcement, right? They're like, oh, you gotta like we can't make people take care of their own garbage. The landlord's got to be responsible. So then they would go and give landlords bills for $700-800. And then they said the number of non-related individuals in a dwelling unit could only be 3, and they maxed that stuff out. So basically everybody just said, screw you, I'm not renting to poor people anymore. I'm only going to rent to students, even if I only get students every other year, because I could charge them like $7,000 a semester for living expenses. I can make way more money renting out 3 out of 5 semesters versus renting to a family for 2 straight years. Okay, And so now we killed the rental market for families. We houses have fallen into the ground, and then Airbnb comes along and says, "Hey, they got a pretty good tourist industry in that area. Let's help them rent their houses out." And so now we have no affordable housing. The solution: the government steals a parking lot from local businesses and puts in a several hundred unit artist loft planned community where we don't already have enough parking anyway. So it's going to be epic. It's just, they're not done. They've been working on it for 2 years now. It's typical government solutioneering, and it's just a mess. They beat up on small businesses that had been paying for years the rents and the taxes on these locations because it had that parking lot, and now that parking lot is gone. It just doesn't. It's awful.
Yeah. I mean, that is the thing. Like, again, I kind of joke, like, just eliminate parking minimums. Like, just ride your bike, Tim. But like, it is a thing, right? Like, you need to have some parking. Again, if it's businesses running it or whatever, like,
they're going to build a parking garage and let the guy who builds it. They're going to pay somebody to build it, but then they're going to let the guy who builds the parking garage charge for parking. Now, in Oneonta, there's already a parking garage that is, people don't like to use it because it's dirty and old and scary. And we're rural folk. We like to park by the side of the street and walk to the store. We like to see the door from our car. People don't like parking garages here.
Yeah,
so will they?
Tim, if you're ever in Rochester, I'm gonna drop you off in like the downtown parking garage. It is amazing. It's actually terrifying because it's like you could drive around it for like 40 minutes in that parking garage and never see like the same road twice. Like, it's
I'm terrified.
I'll give you a panic attack doing that.
This is real. I don't like parking garages. Creep me out, man. That much concrete above me, that much concrete below me. I don't know. Every bad movie's been some sort of episode in a parking garage. I want nothing to do with parking garages, man. They freak me out. Oh, yeah, don't put that comment up, but yes, this one, guys, I did research on this one. I went up okay, so we're bashing Otsego County again. Like, these guys got some grant money right before COVID to build homeless housing, and they built these guys. When I look at them, they look like dog houses. Okay, like they're really small.
Were they like the tiny homes thing?
Tiny homes, but they're okay. Number one, a contractor can't build a tiny home and get a certificate of occupancy for it. So what I have a feeling happened here is these guys thought they could build tiny homes and didn't get a certificate of occupancy for it because they're not occupied. And they're right next to the freaking jail. So, like, how nice are you being to people if you like you're putting them next to a jail? Like, here's a little doghouse for you to stay in. There's the jail. It's so ridiculously uncomfortable. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, putting next to jail thing. Like, I'm fine with like tiny houses, like, because for some people, again, it's same thing, right? Like,
individual
for some folk, that's all they want, right?
Yeah.
Like, and again, I don't think the government should subsidize it. And if you want to take the risk on the market to build tiny houses and find folks who will do that, or partner with a nonprofit, because there's some nonprofits who will do that too. Like, because some folks like, okay, cool, yeah, I just need a bedroom. There's a little sink and a bathroom in there. And that's all I need.
Or vacation community of tiny houses where you go there and stay for a couple months or whatever. Like, but again, what I want to point out, Kevin, is that rules and regulations don't really allow me to build that and sell it with a certificate of occupancy. Like, I could build it and sell it, but then the person who buys it can't necessarily get insurance on it, right? Because there's no certificate of occupancy for something that's built out of code specifications without any kind of technical background and without any special dispensations from the government. And that's a reality. All right. Because I could throw up tiny houses all day. People could camp in them, but they can't live in them because there's no COs. That's the issue. I couldn't rent them. All right. Because I can't get a CO that would allow me to rent them. The code enforcement guy would be like, well, it's too small and there's not enough this and the stairs are screwed up and you can't have a cabinet here and blah, 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 blah. And we curtail freedom. And so the county bit itself in its own butt with this game plan. They're going to have to get special rules written. It's hilarious. Wild. And the glorious virtue signaling of it all. It was like front page in the paper, and they take the best pictures of these things. They make them look huge, and you go up there and you drive up there. They're like, if they're 10 by 12, I would be surprised.
Should
That
be.
if they're
No, I
not
mean,
bigger
you,
than
you,
that,
you ever watch one of those like tiny house like reality shows? You watch
yeah, those are fun. That's fun.
Yeah.
You could put them on a
I
trailer
never
and
want
haul
to
'em
do
down the
that
road
though.
like a camper. I think that's
Oh
great.
yeah, I see people do that. Although I see like some people do like, yeah, I'm gonna like move my family of like 6 into a tiny home, and I'm like, oh no, you guys are gonna murder each other. No, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Seems
Yeah,
terrible.
no,
That is
it's
not enough space.
like the I guess I just want to say like tiny homes are cool. It's an individual freedom choice, but I want to be clear like the government interferes with the mass production of tiny homes. Any place that there are tiny homes, the government has to rezone that area, has to reissue laws, and then they still have insurance company issues when it comes to getting a certificate of occupancy for them. Always.
Right.
So
And that's the interesting part about like some of that stuff is like the insurance side, right? Because even if you fix the law side, there's also like that, and maybe one would follow the other. But Alice says we don't need any more laws and
I
rules
love
to
Alice.
live
I
by.
love it, Alice. You tell them.
Right on, Alice. Love it. I wanted to get this other comment from Dave earlier, just real briefly. Dave says, pay kids to go to trade schools. So interestingly enough, I talked about this on my Wednesday show. So like, make sure to check out the podcast for this. Not only did we talk about like trade schools, but actually one of the guys from like the local union, what he said, local 13, like I forget what trade it was, like plumbing, whatever trade it was. He talked about like how they recruit folks, which is interesting. So I really appreciate that caller who called in and be like, hey, this is another way like you can get on the job training, like from unions in some cases. Like you have to like apply, and they have a process to do that. And like, well, that's interesting. Like that's something a lot of young folks don't consider. And again, if you get into a union, I have a few friends who have like union jobs in like elevator maintenance and plumbing and stuff.
Oh my God, elevator maintenance is huge. You can make so much money.
The guy I know who does that is just a crazy amount of money.
Yeah,
and
it's $100 an hour all day long,
Yeah.
but you've got to work your way up to it a little bit.
Yeah,
but you still start at like $45-$50 an hour. So Alice catches on to some corruption here. I always like when we get a chance to point out corruption. Anytime, again, the government sets up their rules, right? So they set up mileage rules about how to reimburse a bus company. They just take advantage of it. They always do. So
this you got to read, because remember we're doing a podcast. You got to read what she says. All right. So Alice says,
okay.
School buses drive from all areas around without children on the bus with these gas prices. Really? And she goes on to say,
"Oops, sorry."
They do this to get new buses. They run up the mileage because they get caught messing with the mileage. So I don't know like specific allegations. Something though that drives me nuts in Rochester, right, is because like the schools, because they're trying to like, I think it's like an anti-segregation thing, even though it doesn't really work. Like they bus people from all around the city, so you are not necessarily going to the school that is closest to you, right? So, and they don't even like group people together all that well. So buses are driving all around the city all the time to drive people to different schools. So on like any given day, I might see like 4 or 5 buses go down the same street with like 3 kids on them. Because they're taking like one's going to the school in the neighborhood, another one's going to like the school like way up in Charlotte, and another one's going to like a West Side school, and it's like it's insane. And the budget of the school is $983 million, almost $1 billion budget, something like $44,000 per student in the Rochester City. I'm probably going to talk about that on my Monday show, because the city council for once like voted down their share of the school budget. Yeah. And I'm curious to know what that's going to mean, because a lot of the budget comes from the state, but the city does provide some of it. So they have to approve that. And
yeah, in the heart of the COVID lockdown, Kevin, the busing thing, that this is an issue with public transit, right? In the heart of the COVID lockdown, our buses, we got buses that go from our 2 small cities in one large village and small city in Otsego County. They're empty, right? In the middle of the COVID lockdown, they're running the buses anyway. They're never full anyhow. They're never full. And so in the middle of the COVID lockdown, they're running the buses, running them. Like, why are they doing this? None of this made any sense.
Yeah. So you mean like the public transit buses?
Yes, I'm sorry, the public transit buses.
Yeah.
Oneonta Public Transit, OPT.
I mean,
it was bizarre to me. None of it made any sense.
No. That's to get kids. I like. I really want mass transit to work sometimes, right? But like a lot of times it's just they're not going after it the right way, and they just end up subsidizing the heck out of transporting around just a handful of people, and that's frustrating. Like,
Because
I
it
really wish it worked,
it's
because
not
I've been in
grown
cities where it is
organically,
great,
right?
but
The organically grown mass transit, or like trolleys and things like that, that was destroyed by big oil and the car companies. Okay, so they don't let it grow back organically. The government tries to force what they idealize as mass transit down people's throats, and people are like, I'm not going to go to Cooperstown at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to work at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then
yeah.
try to catch a bus at 5 o'clock at night to get home at 7. I'm just going to eventually buy a car. I'm not going to work there. It
Yeah.
doesn't work that way,
No,
and they
no,
don't.
like,
They
it's
got to
even-
force it on you.
No, even in the city of Rochester, right? Like, it's I could take, like, I live pretty close to some bus lines, but like where I live now, it took me 20 minutes to bike to work when I was working at childcare center, 45 minutes to like walk there, or I could take a bus and it would take like an hour and 20 minutes. Like,
Correct.
again, I'm able-bodied, I can do that, like, sure, but it's like it took me so much, it would take me so much more time to
involved.
take the bus, and then I'd be waiting around, and I'd have to be at a bus station when all the high school kids are there.
Yeah, man.
And then, you know, I've got to spend $4 a day on it too, you know, like, it's not, which isn't a lot of money, but like, so it's
Right.
like, but and that, again, that was before I had a car. Like, my wife and I shared like one vehicle for like the first 5 years that we lived in Rochester. And I mostly like walked or rode my bike places, but yeah, like but I hated taking the bus. I rarely did it because I'm like, it would take me so much longer to do that than to ride my bike somewhere. So like, why bother?
Yeah. And so Daniel, right? Like, again, we're on the same subject. I agree that the tiny house idea is awesome.
Daniel says the tiny house idea could really help the homeless population and vets and people transitioning out of prison. Those houses look cool.
I forgot to read the comment again, didn't I?
Yeah, we're doing a podcast, man.
I know. So it is a good idea. Again, where we get into it is that the government interferes with that idea. Again, as a former contractor, I have property. I could have put tiny houses all over them, but zoning stands in the way. Certificate of occupancy stand in the way. And then the issue of renting them out would be next to impossible. So who's going to be able to buy? The person that is in the market for a tiny home wants to pay low rent, right? They're not going to be able to buy your tiny house from you. So I would build it and I would hope to rent it out. I would be willing to take a chance, or could have been willing to take a chance, if everything else about it wasn't impossible. I could put up 10 tiny house units on an acre, right? Give them a little yard, give them a tied in septic system and a well. I could have done that and then maybe got like $3-4 grand a month out of that. But the issues around that do not work. It was too much risk. And because I looked at it, I love the idea of building up like 10 little tiny houses on one of my pieces of property. I just thought that would be so cool. Then I thought about doing it for the Dream Spark, but I don't really like those guys. So the Dream Spark is our tourist industry type thing, and I didn't want to get involved in that. But the government makes it impossible. All right. And then again, it is a good idea. Some people would love it, and it would help vets and homeless people who want people getting out of prison. Larry talks about this at length at certain times, and about how people who have been in prison or people who are homeless want a tiny space where they can store their stuff, and then they want to be outside after all that the rest of the day. That's what they want. We have no real mechanism for giving people that transition back into society, and the government stands in the way of it, basically.
Yeah, and again, that's the hope, right? Like, we just need to get the government out of the way for people to be able to have the market meet their preferences.
Provide for each other, man. That's all. You sound like an anarchist now, Kevin.
I know. Instead of like, no, the only way this can happen is if the government does everything.
It's working so well, especially in New York State. I think we should be really happy with the outcomes. I did get it, but I did get a property rebate check. So,
well, there, you know,
and I'm gonna catch it.
Too bad you can't vote for Hochul in the primary. Gosh darn it. Generously giving you that check.
Oh my God. And guys, she's investing in her communities too.
Investing in her communities, yeah. No, I meant to talk about this last week. So Kathy Hochul ended up buying or spending $2 million of our money, of course it's our money, on a new office building in Buffalo, in the building of a campaign donor. Again, so she already had office space here, right? And like she did that when she was lieutenant governor, and she had that because like that was kind of like her home, right? Like she's from that area, that's where she was a congresswoman, etc. Okay, sure. Lieutenant governors can have like remote offices, so they have like one or two throughout the state, right? That's not unusual. The governor usually maintains two offices, one in Albany and one in New York City, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not unreasonable. She has added this third one in Western New York, and she's like, "Well, see, I won one over here," and spent $2 million with a campaign donor to renovate this office space in Buffalo. And like, what she didn't need that. She didn't need to spend.
Kevin, I think you're
our
trying
money
to say
do
that it looks corrupt, and
it looks a teeny bit corrupt. Like, I'm sorry, I'm seeing a pattern, and I don't like it.
It looks gloriously virtuous to me, where she's just taking care of her local communities and her friends, and the community that she calls home. Kevin, you're just not looking at it right.
Yeah, the community that she called. Are you trying to angle for a PR job in her administration?
I think I'm going down the road of insane amount of sarcasm and pointing out that I agree with you that this is nonsense. These people are garbage. Like, oops. I mean, wait, we're not doing the radio show, so I can go a little bit further out there.
A little bit. You get a little bit spicier. Yeah, not too spicy, but a little bit spicier. But yeah, no, it's that's a new thing. Yeah, like I don't have much to say about that story other than like again, it's so obvious. Like again, Governor Cuomo was like better at this. Like he was like better at like spinning these situations, but like, no, it's not corrupt. Like actually, this is part of my green energy initiative, and I'm just showing, like he would figure out ways to like make it look good, and people would eat it up.
He would just be like, how could you say that about me? That's not my fault. That's my friend's fault. He'll go to jail for that.
Yeah, right. So but yeah, I don't think she's as good. I mean, she's probably still gonna win her primary despite this. But this is shady. I don't like it.
Look, I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna travel down a wormhole. There's no at where it looks right now. There's zero chance that she's not our next governor. Zero chance. She is going to be our next governor. That's a reality. Deal with it. We have to get rid of local politicians who will start pushing. We have to get rid of the ones that are not pushing back against the state and have them start pushing back against the state. We have to elect assemblymen and senators who understand that third-party representation isn't just rubber stamping your Republicans for the Conservative Party and rubber stamping your Democrat for the Working Family Party. We've got to start electing people, and we've got to have leadership. If we want to be successful, the Conservative Party has to stop doing what it's been doing for decades, okay? And that's simply rubber stamping the Republican Party and participating in malfeasance on behalf of the Republican Party, period. They've got to stop doing it. I'm disappointed in them. I've been disappointed in them for a long time. The cognitive dissonance is what got me to the Libertarian Party, but the disappointment in the Conservative Party also helped me get there, period. Cognitive dissonance is I really hate wars, guys. I really hate wars. I really hate growth in government. And those things are real. And these guys, these blood-soaked monsters, love to make money off of these things. And that's a reality. So that's how I feel. Who is Facebook user?
Facebook user says, Tim, you nailed it. Ryan does not believe you that Kathy Hochul is destined to win. He says Larry Sharpe will whoop her ass. Debate that. I
won't debate that. If Larry gets in a debate with her, we're back on track, guys. That's a reality. That's going to be a good thing for sure. Yeah. And Larry has the trade school, paying kids to go to trade school. Larry has a program where it's like, hey, in 10th grade, choose to go to a trade school. Your money follows you. You come out with a marketable skill, and then maybe you don't start off as a first-year apprentice when you go into a labor union or a business. You start off at a much higher rate of pay, and I think that those things are good. And then your education already starts paying you back, and that you don't even have to go to college.
Yeah, and I think it'd be a great thing, and I'd love to see that. And I ended up talking about some of that on my show yesterday too. yeah, if you get people started, because it's not just a skill thing and like a fail early type of thing. It's also a build connections thing, right? If you have
Sure.
connections in an industry in a local area, people are going to be more likely to stick around and less likely to be like, you know what, I'm just going to head to South Carolina like everyone else.
You know what else would stick around? Businesses that want to build industries. And guys, that is something. Again in Otsego County, we've lost so many businesses that would benefit from trade schools. We were like once a leader in building a magnetic resonant imager and positron emission tomography units in the back of tractor trailers, and they would get hauled all over the country. These things cost millions of dollars, and it was a great way to share the modern technology for an affordable price. And that business is now defunct, and it's because of high taxation. It's hard to find work, and the high taxation in New York, guys, creates an expense burden that a place like Wisconsin, who also makes these things, can outcompete us price wise, and it's a reality, man. And we do nothing about it.
Yeah,
New York State does nothing about it. They try to bribe the people that are in business to stay in business for as long as they can, and then that's it. They don't do anything to effectively lower their cost basis, and that's a real problem.
yeah.
Yes, David, I did a lot of work for them. Oh, Dave said Medicoach. Yes, Medicoach was the place I'm talking about. World leader, guys, in this technology of putting magnetic resonance image, these $1 million units in the back of tractor trailers, whatever it was. We built even bathrooms for hurricane response, like where you could get a shower and a toilet and everything like that in the back of a trailer. You could haul it onto a site, boom, done, set it up, gone.
Oh,
A
neat.
couple hundred gallons of water. I used to subcontract with them, and it was one of my favorite places to do business with. And unfortunately, they're gone now. Excuse me. And it's because of New York State and the tax burdens that it puts on people, and the lack of people, young people that are willing to stay in this thing. That's it. Sorry about that, but
Yeah,
a little passionate there.
yeah. Well, all right. So I know we're coming up on an hour. I could have literally filled an hour of fake news today, so I want to get to like a couple.
We got
of
to do
those
some,
things.
and I don't have
We'll
any, so we can do all yours.
Oh yeah, I got a bunch. All right, so do fake news Thursday. There you go. And I gotta get the music from Bob, so I can play that for this part. But we'll start with this headline. Tell me if this is real or not. World Health Organization will rename monkeypox virus to minimize stigma and racism.
Again, the glorious virtue of our zealous overlords. I'm sure that's real news. They're gonna do it.
It is in fact real news. They are going to rename it. They say they say they have a policy of not naming viruses after animals or countries, and so that's why, because like when some people started calling it like the Wuhan virus with COVID, or Trump calling it like the China virus, right? Like
right.
They're like, no, it's SARS-CoV-2. We need to call it by its proper name. But yeah, it's I don't know. I find it almost insulting, like, because like one of the quotes from one of their like officials is like, in the context of the current global outbreak, continued reference to and nomenclature of this virus being African is not only inaccurate but also discriminatory and stigmatizing. I'm like, wait, who mentioned African? Like, when did anyone mention that? Like, what the heck?
Who is the goddamn racist here? Like,
I know, right? Like, I read that and I'm like, yo, you're kind of being racist here, man. Like, I don't. Right? What Jesus. The heck? Yeah, like, yeah. So like, I seen that, and I guess like some African press organizations, like Western media is showing too many pictures of Africans having monkeypox, and they should show, like, I'm like, okay, sure, I guess, but like, it's been a disease that's been around for a while. Like monkeypox is a thing in like Central and South America too. It's like, yeah, I read that statement, like, that kind of seems racist to me. Like, no one mentioned Africans in monkeypox until
they
you, man.
did.
Like,
until
what?
They did. And
come
look,
on,
man, the whole bat soup thing, that was racial animus too. Okay, like that, there was never a chance that the coronavirus came from bat freaking soup. Like nonsense. You guys took advantage of a strange custom and used racial animus to hype that in the news right from day one. They're awful, awful, awful human beings, right to their core.
Yeah, no, that's I read that and like that is just that's ugly stuff. All right, let's see. What other ones do I got though?
Wait, Ryan asks, are we brainwashed enough? This is the problem, and we need more of us because we aren't brainwashed. Somehow we've avoided being brainwashed. I'm not saying I don't emotively respond sometimes to certain things, but we are not brainwashed. We don't buy the one side or the other duopolistic lies about race and about the news. And that is a beautiful thing. And that's why I like sharing this time with guys like you and everybody that's here. Sorry, I got a little.
No, right. You get misty eyed there. All right. I got another one for you. This is going to be related to New York stuff. Are you familiar with Pokemon?
I am a little bit. Yeah, the kids used to do it pretty good. My older kids did. So go
ahead. Tell me if this is a real quote from a real news article. Astorino, Rob Astorino, Republican gubernatorial candidate, says Astorino was especially bothered by the inclusion of the word Charizarding, which supposedly describes the use of fire during sex, saying that such an act would be criminal when talking about why we need to look at sexual education in New York. Is Rob Astorino concerned about Charizarding?
I mean, now I'm concerned about it. I don't know.
You're like, what are the kids doing nowadays? What's wrong with them?
What are you kids up? And like, is there a website we can go to see what this is about? No. All right. So Rob is okay. I did catch some of his work recently, and a lot of people are in conjunction with Rob concerned about the level of sexual stuff that's being taught in schools. So I'm gonna go ahead and say he would say I'll make Charizarding illegal. Yeah, he probably
he did.
Did he?
So yeah, he did say that.
Do we have any more information on what it is, Kevin?
So I like
we're not on the radio, remember?
No. I know. Well, I said this is the podcast. So we do spicier content, hot content, if you will. But so I guess what happened is like someone had like sent him an image where like there was a list of terms written on like a whiteboard, and it seems like it's one of those things where like a teacher in like a sexual health and education class was like, well, what are some things that you've heard? And someone was either trolling or like had heard like a family member say something, and Charizarding made it on there. And then he looked it up on Urban Dictionary and saw that it was mixing sex and fire. And he's like, yeah, I'm concerned about Charizard. I'm concerned that the schools are teaching kids about Charizarding. I'm like, all right, I don't
wicked concerned.
You know, it is true. If the schools are like, hey kids, you got to try the Charizarding, like check it out.
I would recommend. But, yes, I would come down on Astorino's side there.
Yeah, so maybe like it's you shouldn't mix those things.
He might have got trolled though. He might.
Yeah, I like it. It kind of seems like a troll. Like either maybe not like him, but like probably like a kid being a smart ass in health class and like throwing out that term like as a joke or something, right? Like because that's absolutely something that I would have done in high school. And like the very serious teachers like, oh yes, okay, let's talk about that. We'll write that on the board, and I would have found that stuff hilarious in high school.
Yeah. That would have been, and whoever came up with that is living the life right now. They are laughing.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a real thing. Like, don't let me yuck your yum. If you want to do that, as long as everyone's consenting, like, go ahead.
I mean, I don't think there should be a law against it, I guess, but
as long as everyone's consenting, you can Charizard all you want.
Maybe your insurance company would have the option of not covering your injuries from it. I don't know. It's like self-inflicted. I don't know. What's the libertarian take on Charizarding? It's somewhat dangerous.
As long as everyone's consenting.
All right. But we got to talk about the insurance company covering the health costs. Like, should they have
I mean, I don't know if they're gonna. I mean, you heard about the Geico story, right? The Geico STD story.
No.
Oh, I could have used this one as a fake. So some I think it was a woman. Some woman got a sexually transmitted disease because she had relations with her boyfriend in a car, and then tried to make it an insurance claim against a car company for that, and supposedly won. I didn't read the details of that one, so I don't know exactly what happened there.
But it sounds like it's okay.
All right. Yeah, so the insurance company might have to cover it.
Yeah,
I mean that definitely feels more like you should probably just be careful in the first place if you're bringing fire to that situation.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you do you.
Yeah.
So kind of on a somewhat similar theme, but tell me if this is fake news. Lauren Boebert had a history in her past of being an escort and having 2 abortions. Real or fake news?
That's got to be fake news. It can't be real.
It seems like it's almost certainly fake news.
Okay.
Like there's no, like, of course she denies it. There's not really any evidence. Like the group that spread it was like a liberal pack that seems to kind of play fast and loose with the truth, and spread it around. It's like, oh, she was on like a sugar baby site. She had abortions, and like their source is like one rando who like texted them, and they made a bunch of stuff around it. And yeah, like that, and kind of anyone with like half a brain, even people who really don't, and there are good reasons, to dislike this person, but even so, no. Also fake news.
Also,
probably. I don't know.
Probably. It's hard to say.
But yeah,
she hasn't denied it.
I'm not gonna read that
one. No, it doesn't need to go to the podcast.
But yeah, so it seems like it's fake. Just one of those things where you hear, where you hear a rumor and people want it to be true because the hypocrisy is just so gosh darn juicy.
We do like hypocrisy as a society. We enjoy partaking in saying, hey, you're a bigger hypocrite than I am. And that's one of the areas where I get hit with that cognitive dissonance when, it's like we're all hypocrites. And guys, even libertarians get a little hypocritical. It's just occasionally your beliefs and your actions don't meet up perfectly. And it's hard, man, because we're all human. And I don't know. I'm forgiving of it. It doesn't get me as upset as it used to. And I definitely don't let the hypocrisy of the mainstream news, like dunking hypocrisy in the face of the guy that they're disagreeing with, like dunking Tucker Carlson's hypocrisy in his face, or dunking whatever clown show, Stelter, all those jokes on CNN, like whatever, that's who they are. They're not cool like me and Kevin, first of all. And they're that's the reality.
That's real news right there.
That is real news.
So we have a listener submitted one from Ryan Bedford on Facebook. He says, Little Caesars passes Pizza Hut. Fake news?
Little Caesars is now bigger than Pizza Hut? Is that what we're...
Yeah.
I'm going to go with, based on what I'm seeing locally, that Little Caesars is doing a good job in stores and having a little successful, tiny little kiosk kind of businesses. And Pizza Hut's restaurant model is now basically Chinese food restaurants here in central New York. So I'm going to go with that is real news.
That's true. So I don't know if they sell more by volume. Maybe Ryan can chime in this, but I do know what they did do was they now replace Little Caesars replaced Pizza Hut as like the official pizza sponsor of the NFL.
Ooh,
so
all right. That's a big deal. That means they're making more money.
So they're doing all right. Yeah, hot and ready, baby. Yeah, that's what Ryan says on Facebook. No, I mean, I'll say this about Little Caesars. I used to eat them a lot more when I lived closer to one because you know what? Like, is Little Caesars good? well, it's hot and ready. Like
It is.
that's and it was $5. I'm like, yeah, $5 pizza. I'm about it.
They did hit a price point for sure, man. And guys like they have little chicken wings for like $4 or whatever.
Yeah,
And the
then the
food is
garlic
good. It's
things too.
consistent from shop to shop. That's one of the biggest things that McDonald's is successful about. It's not that everything is good, it's that it's exactly the same in New York as it is in California, as it is in Texas. You know what you're getting. And so that to me that Little Caesars has mastered that. And Pizza Hut got into a funky, let's get creative with our pizza thing, and I don't think it paid off for them.
No, actually, I've had them recently, and I was kind of not. It was not as greasy as I want. Like the what I liked about Pizza Hut is like it felt like it was deep fried in olive oil for a certain point in time, and I wanted that, like, because I expected. I was like, all right, yeah, give me greasy
that
stuff.
Yeah,
like cover it in bacon and olive oil, and that's what I want. And again, I'll go to, like, I have my like favorite local places too. It's tough to take a gamble on like a local pizza joint, especially if you go outside of New York. Like it is like it's totally a thing. You go down south and like some of the pizza places, all right, I'm gonna drop $30 on a pie, and I don't know if it's gonna be good or not.
You can't.
Or there's a Little Caesars, and it's like whatever it is, like $6 now. Like I know it's not great, but it certainly is.
But I know what it is, because there are many variations in pizza, and New York pizza is one thing unto itself versus every other kind of pizza.
So I'll say, like, I went to Miami, like whatever 2 months ago now, and I was really hoping like there's enough New Yorkers there to make good pizza. And like every pizza I had there is $5 a slice, and it was just not great. It was like, man, come on.
Could be the water.
That's the rumor. It's the water. Yeah. I don't know, even though like my mom like worked at a Pizza Hut for like 10 years, and like that's I used to eat that all the time, and that was when we lived in Georgia, but I didn't. That was the only thing I consumed, so I didn't have anything to compare it to then. Plus, again, Pizza Hut, you have the chain. So
can we should probably end off, but I do want to kind of cover one slightly serious topic about what this political season is right at this moment. Okay, what is going on at the New York State Board of Elections right now is what's called petition challenging garbage. Okay, like you have in our local Senate District 51 race, we have an up and coming young lady out of Hudson Valley who wants to be a conservative Republican and do something different than what's been going on. She's pro two-way. She saw early on that the COVID lockdown stuff was bad, and so she went out, did the work, doesn't have millions of dollars, gets the signatures, and the jerk that occupies the office is challenging her petitions. His little stooges, and guys, I have a special distaste for these, because his little stooges did the same thing to me by invalidating my own signature, like to keep me off the ballot. It's garbage behavior. Maybe there's a valid reason for it, but most of the time it's simple partisan garbage, where we're not a democracy when we're pulling and playing games, keeping people off the ballots with technicalities. It's garbage and it's evil. And let's give people choices. Okay, we don't have a democracy when we're knocking people off ballots. When the Libertarian Party can't access or has challenges like getting 45,000 signatures and a Republican only has to get 15,000, or a Democrat only has to get 15,000 signatures. This is inappropriate. Our state is already on a collision course with disaster. We are losing people at an amazingly rapid rate. It's a frustrating time for me. I'm very annoyed right now.
Yeah, man, I think anyone who's hoping for more choices on the ballot is frustrated right now. They create a whole bunch of new barriers for third-party candidates to get on the ballot. And yeah, 100% like frustrated with the challenges and the technicalities, and then
they're garbage. Technicalities are garbage.
Yeah. Again, it's like it's not like that was a signature, like because again, I've been through this process many times too. Like signatures were given in good faith, and then the state has the gall to be like, no, you prove to me that's a real person. What do you mean is a real person? They witnessed it. I witnessed it, myself. They signed this thing. There's a voter who demanded that another choice on the ballot. You come on, what right do you have to deny them like their voice in this process.
Other states
Prove
have
it.
much better petitioning requirements. And look, I get it; it's expensive, but look, the love of power in New York State is disgusting, and they write rules to benefit their love of power. It's okay. I keep saying disgusting, but guys, it's disgusting. It's literally disgusting.
Yeah.
Sorry. I came up with better ad hominems there, Kevin, but disgusting is the one that keeps coming out.
That's true. No, I think it's a fair description.
It's embarrassing, man.
Yeah. And just again, it's to drive people without the resources to be able to survive those challenges out. Again, because
It
a
is
lot of campaigns, like the independent campaigns in particular, like they put everything they have into just getting on the ballot. They've had to hire folks. They've tried to spend on marketing materials.
right.
Oftentimes they're putting a lot of their own resources in this. And now, okay, I'm gonna have to go spend a bunch of money on lawyers and court fees and a bunch of nonsense to try to fight this.
Up the system, Kevin. It just drives me nuts.
Yeah. No, that's it's a definitely something that I think is on the mind of a lot of folks, and it'll be interesting to see what comes of the race you were talking about. Other candidates who are struggling to get on the ballot. Larry's race too. He did that live the other day about that.
There's some challenges to his petitions. And look, I'm down with, hey, if your petitions are fraudulent, like you photocopy a bunch of garbage and hand it in and say you want an independent line, I'm pretty sympathetic to that person not getting that independent line.
Okay? Yeah, right. Like if you're
garbage, dude. Okay, you're garbage for even trying it, but whatever. That also happened. I want to be clear.
Yeah, people have done that.
It was somebody trying to get an independent line. It'll break in the news, but you're hearing it here first. Photocopies, guys. Photocopies to try to sneak it past, hoping that he didn't get challenged to get an independent line. It's a clown show.
There's was someone tried to libertarian line again? I didn't.
It was an independent line.
Because people have done that to the libertarian line before. Like they'll submit like a bunch of photocopies, or it'll be like thousands of pages with one signature on it, and then hoping that no one actually challenges it. But yeah, they do. Like, nope. You're just a crank. Okay. Bye. No, you're just
all right. I tried. That's different, right? Like Billy the Cat. Okay. Like don't challenge Billy the Cat's petition. You can challenge Billy the Cat's petition. I'm okay with that. All right? Like that's legitimate. That's a legitimate use of your challenge powers and our rights as citizens to verify things. But this other stuff is just garbage, man.
Yeah.
Garbage.
All right, but we should probably call it a night. And I think, folks, if there's one thing that you should take away from the show, it's that Little Caesars seems like they have money, so they should sponsor us now. So that's the key message.
And give out Little Caesars coupons to homeless people on the street corners.
Yeah,
that's what Ryan's up to. I like that, Ryan. That's nice. It's generous. Yeah. You can have food. You don't need cash because I know what you're going to do with the cash.
Yeah, that's what you want to do. It's your money, and if you want to do Little Caesars, it's your prerogative, right? But yeah, that's the main takeaway there. I think that's what everyone's going to walk away with is we need to get Little Caesars to sponsor us because I'm down for a cheap pie. That's me. Yeah.
Or
yeah, I know. All right. So that's it though, folks. Again, radio show that goes out on WISL. That's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Usually me on Monday and Wednesday. Usually Larry on Tuesday. Sometimes Tim will join.
I do. I like showing up. I always try to make comments anyways. Sometimes I'm busy at lunchtime, but I like to get a few digs in there. And generally Kevin will read them out unless they're too. Sometimes I get a little far out there at lunchtime. I try to make him laugh. So he may not read those on the air.
Some of those I was like, Tim, what the hell?
I can see your face. It's funny because I'm watching you on the internet. I can see your face. And I was just like, that was a good one. I did perfect there.
Yeah. All right. But we're going to call it night. Thanks, folks, for listening today. Appreciate all of y'all. Have a wonderful, wonderful night.